homeless encampment in the Phillips neighborhood is taking a unique approach to get ready for winter and raising money to build yurts.
One government-funded housing unit in Los Angeles costs close to $600,000. One tiny home in the villages you're about to see costs about $7,500. You could build 80 tiny homes for the price of a single government unit. But the wild part isn't the math. It's that regular people, churches, nonprofits, and even one auto mechanic in upstate New York are quietly building communities that make billion-dollar government programs look embarrassing. Here are 10 of them. Number 10, LIHI, Tiny House Villages in Seattle, Washington. The Low-Income Housing Institute in Seattle started building tiny house villages back in 2015, and they figured out something that most city governments still haven't grasped. You don't need to spend $250,000 per bed to give someone a warm, dry place to sleep. Each of their tiny shelters costs about $2,500. That's it. Weatherproof walls, a lockable door, insulation, and enough room for a bed and personal belongings. The villages have shared bathrooms, kitchens, and case management services on site. The residents actually run the place. Each village is self-managed, with the people living there having real decision-making power over operations and day-to-day rules. That means if you're a resident, you're not just someone receiving charity. You have a voice. You have responsibility. And that shift in mindset, going from being managed to being a participant, is what actually helps people transition into permanent housing. The Institute now manages over 2,000 dwelling units across Seattle, and the tiny home villages keep expanding because they keep working. By comparison, King County's government-run Health Through Housing initiative spent close to $300,000 per unit to acquire and remodel old hotels into transitional shelter. Per unit. That's more than 100 times the cost of one LIHI tiny shelter. And the LIHI villages were up and running in weeks, not years. But LIHI had an advantage. They're based in Seattle, a city with resources. The next project on this list started in a place with almost nothing. Number 9. Sacred Heart Veteran Village in Flint, Michigan. In a city already devastated by a water crisis and decades of economic decline, Catholic Charities broke ground in November 2024 on something that should have existed a long time ago. Sacred Heart Veteran Village is designed specifically for homeless veterans, and it accepts all of them, regardless of discharge status. That distinction is critical. A lot of veterans fall through the cracks because their discharge paperwork disqualifies them from government programs. Sacred Heart doesn't care about that. If you served, you qualify. The first phase includes a Veterans Resource Center and 4 homes, with plans to build 22 more by the fall of 2026. The Resource Center will connect veterans with mental health services, job training, and medical care all in one location. You're not bouncing between agencies across town or waiting months for an appointment. Everything in one place, surrounded by other people who understand what you've been through. That model of putting services right next to housing, rather than scattering them across a city, is exactly what the research says actually works. And it's being built in Flint, Michigan, not Washington, D.C. A city that couldn't even provide clean drinking water for its own residents is now leading the way in veteran housing. The people behind this project aren't waiting for Congress to pass another bill. They're pouring concrete right now. Sacred Heart had Catholic Charities behind them, but the next community on this list was started by one guy with zero organizational backing and a piece of his own backyard. Number 8. Second Wind Cottages in Newfield, New York. This one started with a man named Carmen Guidi. He's an auto mechanic in a small town just outside Ithaca. He wasn't a politician or a developer. He didn't have millions in funding. Just a guy who believed that if you give a homeless person a real home, everything else starts to fall into place. In early 2014, Carmen and 125 volunteers built 6 tiny cottages on his own property. Each cottage has a bedroom, a kitchen, and a bathroom, An actual little house with a front door that closes, not a cot in a gymnasium or a shared dormitory with 40 strangers. The community now includes a garden where residents grow their own food, a fire pit where neighbors gather on cool evenings, walking paths through the surrounding woods, and even a sauna. These details matter because they treat the residents like human beings, not case numbers. Carmen didn't wait for a government grant or a city council vote. He just started building. And that's the difference between people who talk about solving homelessness and people who actually solve it. Carmen built on his own land, which meant the city couldn't touch him. The next person on this list wasn't so lucky. Number 7. Elvis Summers and My Tiny House Project in Los Angeles. In 2015, a musician named Elvis Summers noticed a woman named Smokey sleeping on the sidewalk in his South Los Angeles neighborhood. She had been living on that patch of concrete for years, so Elvis spent 5 days and about $500 building her a tiny house on wheels. It had a door, a window, a lock, and enough room to sleep safely off the ground. He posted a video of Smokey seeing her new home for the first time, and it went viral. People started sending money. Elvis built more, then more. Eventually, he had over 40 tiny homes on wheels scattered around Los Angeles, each equipped with solar panels and a portable composting toilet. Regular people, not the government, funded the entire operation through a crowdfunding campaign that raised over $100,000. But then the city stepped in. Los Angeles officials declared the tiny homes a safety hazard and started confiscating them during street sweeps. People who finally had shelter were thrown back onto the pavement. Elvis described it as horrible, watching people he had helped lose everything overnight. The city said they had alternative housing options, but anyone who's been homeless in LA knows the wait lists for those options stretch months, sometimes years. Elvis kept going anyway. He moved surviving homes onto private property and kept looking for solutions. And his story lit a fire under communities all over the country who saw what one person with a saw and some plywood could accomplish. The absurdity of it was impossible to ignore. The city was simultaneously spending tens of millions of dollars on official homeless programs that produced almost nothing, while actively destroying homes that a regular guy built for $500 a piece. That contrast is the entire problem with how government approaches homelessness, summed up in one story. Elvis was fighting City Hall in Los Angeles. But across the country in the Pacific Northwest, another group had been fighting the same fight for years, and they actually won. Number 6. Quixote Village in Olympia, Washington. This place started as a ragged tent camp in 2007. A group of homeless adults in Olympia just started camping together, pooling whatever resources they had, and self-governing their own little community out of necessity. They called themselves Quixote Village, after Don Quixote, the dreamer who fought windmills. For 6 years, they moved from spot to spot as the city shuffled them around. Then in 2013, Thurston County leased them a 2-acre plot of land in an industrial area for $1 per year. $1. Volunteers and donations helped build 30 tiny homes, each 144 square feet, along with a community building that has showers, laundry, a kitchen, and a dining room. Every cottage has its own heating system, electricity, and a half bathroom. The total construction cost was $3.1 million, which sounds like a lot until you compare it to the $500 million Los Angeles spends on permanent supportive housing that barely moves the needle. Quixote Village is permanent supportive housing. The residents can stay as long as they need, and one of their former neighbors, a trucking company that originally opposed the village, now brings them food donations regularly. Quixote Village proved a tent camp could become a real community. But the projects in the top 5 make even Quixote look small. Now, before we get to those, I want to mention something. If you or someone you care about is going through a hard time right now, whether that's a family member close to losing their housing, a veteran trying to navigate the system, or a neighbor you've been worrying about, I put together a guide called the Survival Blueprint. It covers practical steps for finding emergency housing, getting on the right wait lists, accessing food and medical resources, and helping someone you love get back on their feet. It also covers what to do if you want to start helping in your own community, even in small ways. The link is in the description below. If this video is helping you, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. If Quixote Village proved that homeless communities can govern themselves, this next one proved they can run an entire village on $10 a month. Number 5. Dignity Village in Portland, Oregon. In the winter of 2000, a group of homeless people in downtown Portland set up a tent city called Camp Dignity. It was a protest against the city's ban on homeless encampments. Over time, it evolved into something nobody expected. Today, Dignity Village is a self-governed, gated community in Northeast Portland that shelters 60 people every night. The tiny homes are built from recycled and donated materials. Each one has a propane heater and enough space for a bedroom. The village runs on democratic principles. Residents elect their own leadership, manage their own finances, and enforce their own rules. There are community gardens, shared kitchens, internet access, and connections to education and counseling services. One longtime resident named Lisa Larson, who ended up at Dignity Village after fleeing an abusive husband, eventually became the village's CEO. She initially planned to stay a few months. She stayed 6 years because, as she put it, there's a real sense of pride and community that you don't find elsewhere. The city limits Dignity Village to 60 residents, but the model it established has been copied in cities across the Pacific Northwest. It proved that homeless people aren't just problems to be managed. Given the chance, they'll organize, build, and govern themselves. The city spends nothing on it. Residents pay $10 a month in dues, follow the rules, or face a community vote. Just people looking out for each other, without bureaucrats managing the details. Dignity Village shelters 60 people a night. The next project on this list shelters over 900. Number 4. Hope of the Valley Tiny Home Villages across Los Angeles. While the city of Los Angeles was spending nearly $600,000 per permanent housing unit, a nonprofit called Hope of the Valley Rescue Mission was building tiny home villages for a fraction of the cost. Starting in 2021, they opened 6 villages across the San Fernando Valley and Highland Park, providing over 900 beds every single night. Each tiny home is 64 square feet, built by a company called Pallet Shelter, and comes with 2 beds, heating, air conditioning, windows, a small desk, and a front door that locks. That locking door matters more than you might think. In a congregate shelter, a big open room with rows of cots, you can't leave your belongings unattended. You can't sleep without one eye open. A locking door gives you safety, privacy, and something that sounds simple, but is actually everything when you've been living on the street. Dignity. Each unit costs about $7,500 for labor and materials. The villages include on-site meals, showers, laundry, case management, mental health services, and job training. Founder Ken Kraft described the villages as places where people can start over again. Residents stay for an initial 90 days, with the option to extend for another 3 months while they work toward permanent housing. One resident had been homeless since 1994, when the Northridge earthquake partially collapsed his apartment. That experience was so traumatic, he hadn't slept inside a building in over 2 decades. His first night in a tiny home with a locking door was the first real sleep he'd had in 27 years. And no government report will ever capture what that one locking door meant to him. Hope of the Valley focused on getting people inside quickly. The next project went further. They focused on the people nobody else was willing to house. Number 3. Eden Village in Springfield, Missouri. When Dr. David Brown and his wife Linda started working with homeless people in Springfield back in 2010, they noticed something that bothered them deeply. Nobody was paying attention to the chronically disabled homeless. Families with children attracted resources and sympathy. But a man with schizophrenia who's been sleeping behind a dumpster for 3 years? He was invisible. So the Browns created Eden Village, a gated community of 400 square foot tiny homes designed specifically for chronically disabled homeless adults. Each home has a full kitchen with a stove, oven, and fridge. There's a bedroom, a bathroom, and a living area. Some of the newer units even have fingerprint entry systems. Rent is $300 per month, which includes utilities, laundry, and access to the community center. That community center has a full kitchen, a library, computers, even a woodworking shop. And out back, residents grow their own peaches, pears, and vegetables in a community garden. In its first full year of operation, Eden Village reduced chronic homelessness in Springfield by 14%. The cost per home started at about $30,000. Compare that to the $30,000 to $40,000 per year that a single chronically homeless person costs taxpayers through emergency room visits, jail stays, and police calls. Eden Village now has 3 locations in Springfield, and the model is being replicated in cities across the country. By housing people first and providing support second, they flipped the traditional government model on its head. And it worked. Eden Village proved you can house people for $30,000 a unit. But the next project did something even more radical. They let residents own the homes. Number 2, Cass Community Tiny Homes in Detroit, Michigan. In a city that was left for dead after decades of industrial collapse, a nonprofit called Cass Community Social Services did something that no government program in the country had ever done. They built tiny homes that homeless people could eventually own. 25 tiny homes, each between 250 and 400 square feet, each architecturally unique, no two looking the same, sit on individual lots in a Detroit neighborhood near the historic Boston Edison district. The homes cost about $40,000 each to build, and they were funded entirely through private donations, including grants from Ford Motor Company. Residents pay $1 per square foot per month in rent, so a 300 square foot home costs $300 a month. They attend monthly homeowner classes, work with a financial coach, and volunteer in the neighborhood. After 7 years of staying in the program, the resident receives the deed to their home. They own it, free and clear. In December 2025, a man named D'Angelo became the 3rd person to sign the deed to his tiny home. 2 more residents are expected to become homeowners in 2026. That's real. People who were sleeping in shelters or on the streets are now homeowners in Detroit. They have an asset. They have equity. They have something to pass down to their children. Meanwhile, government housing programs across the country spend 6 figures per unit on buildings that the residents will never own and can be kicked out of at any time. Cass Community gave people ownership, but the number 1 project on this list built something bigger than any single home. They built an entire town, and number 1, Community First Village in Austin, Texas. In 2015, a nonprofit called Mobile Loaves and Fishes opened a 51-acre development on the outskirts of Austin called Community First Village. The founder, a man named Alan Graham, believed something most officials wouldn't say out loud. Community matters more than square footage, so he didn't just build tiny homes, he built a neighborhood. Today, Community First Village has over 535 homes, including tiny houses, RVs, and manufactured homes, housing formerly chronically homeless people in a self-contained community with gardens, art studios, a blacksmith shop, a car repair garage, a cinema, a community market, and even a bed and breakfast run by residents. The rent ranges from $225 to $500 per month. And this is not transitional housing. This is permanent. Residents can stay for the rest of their lives. Each home is about 200 square feet, with a kitchenette, a bed, and a recliner. But the real difference is the community around those buildings. Neighbors look out for each other. Residents work in the on-site businesses. There's purpose here, not just a roof. The village celebrated 10 years of operation in 2025 and announced plans to expand to nearly 2,000 homes across 3 locations, which would make it by far the largest project of its kind in the United States. Enough to permanently house about half of Austin's chronically homeless population. Alan Graham put it simply at the anniversary celebration. When they began this journey, people couldn't believe it could come together. 10 years later, they're moving men and women who were sleeping under bridges into permanent homes in a supportive community. And if you ask the residents, they'll tell you something the government still hasn't figured out. The square footage doesn't change your life. A neighbor who knows your name does. One resident, a 41-year-old man named Justin, moved into a 200-square-foot tiny house in the fall of 2022 after years of chronic homelessness. He now has a kitchenette, a bed, a recliner, and a community of people who check on him. That's not a government program. That's a neighborhood. And it works better than anything any agency has built. Every single project on this list was built by regular people who got tired of waiting for the government to act. Church groups, auto mechanics, musicians, married couples, nonprofit volunteers. They had lumber, donated land, crowdfunding campaigns, and a basic understanding that a person with a locking door and a bed will always do better than a person on a sidewalk. If you know someone who's going through a hard time right now, or if you're going through one yourself, the survival blueprint I mentioned earlier is in the description below. It covers how to find emergency housing, what resources exist that most people never hear about, and how to start helping in your own community. The link is right there. Go grab it. I'll see you in the next one.